The San Francisco 49ers players, they've been talking, we've been listening, and it does sound like they are in full agreement that as it stands right now, it is a must win type of environment for the San Francisco 49ers, and not just for the simple fact that it is, must win against the Packers. No, it's must win here on out. And is going to be very, very fascinating to see how the team responds to this because they do know what's at stake, and it's big. It's big, but let's talk about it. We got a lot of updates to come out of practice, with today being the first practice availability of the week. Let's talk about it. 49ers football loading. You guys already know what to do. Drop an SDS in the chat. Bread Gang, we see you. Let's get it. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. All right, what's going on, guys? Let's quickly run through the practice reports and let's get into it. And then we'll talk about like this notion that we've now heard from multiple players. But let's start with Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy was seen at practice today. He was a limited participant. Actually, wasn't seen throwing to the by the open or by the media during the open portion of the I can't even talk, of the open portion of practice by the media. There we go. Got it out. So that could be an indication that Brock Purdy's arm soreness and his throwing arm is a little bit more than we anticipated. Or it could just be the San Francisco 49ers being ultra cautious to not put any available strain on his arm. So I think for Brock, and I think it is important to note that Kyle did say that he's not worried about the availability of Brock against the Packers. So I think kind of like let us know, like, all right, when you see him not practicing today, it's more so we're just being smart with his arm, giving him a rest. And so we'll monitor that throughout the week. We had three guys of notable big time names not practice today. Nick Bosa, obviously with the hip oblique, Trent Williams with the ankle, Christian McCaffrey Achilles /rest. I expect all three of these guys to play, although we will have to monitor their practice availabilities throughout the week. We got to see, what's going to go down with Trent. Obviously, he was a game time decision, tested it right before the game, ultimately played. Nick Bosa is a one where they aren't saying for sure just yet if he will play. I think they are being ultra cautious with Nick. I would have to assume he's going to play in this game because we'll get into that in a second about the must win because it's must win. So all three of these guys didn't practice today, but these are also three guys that I don't think need to practice throughout the week to be able to play. Some better news in regards to Charvarius Ward and George Kittle. Ward is back with the team. He put in a limited participation today, so he is trending towards being available against the Packers, although Kyle was reluctant to say if he was or not. I do kind of think that Ward is trending towards playing against the Packers. Obviously, we'll be playing with a heavy heart for sure, but I do know that this team misses him and would love to have him back out on the field, strapping up the opposing wide receivers. So George Kittle, too, was also discussing or we also talked about George Kittle, who limited participation today, but he let everyone know that he is practicing, or excuse me, he will play against the Packers. He put any kind of, uh, you know, whatever, but I guess speculation, put that to bed. And so George will play. So that's good news for the San Francisco 49ers because, boy, was he missed. So much so that Jalen Moore was your backup tight end in that game against the Seahawks. So, yeah. Um, B. Lawrence says, "Did I see Kyle Posey's break down the myth that wide receivers are not getting separation on routes?" I did not. Kyle does great work. He's the managing editor for Niners Nation. Um, very good at his job. So um, I obviously understand that there's a lot of narratives out there right now. There's a lot of talking points. There's a lot of, analysis. There's a lot of different things detailing why the 49ers are struggling effectively on offense. I would say that when we looked at the performance uh, of the 49ers defense against Seattle, they were having a great game, I thought. Obviously, it all fell apart on the last drive, but I did feel like they were playing exceptionally well and giving the 49ers offense every single opportunity to score and to make the plays. It just wasn't happening. Um, and so I'm down if you guys still want to talk about Seattle and what was going on. I think it's a multi-pronged issue. It all starts up front. It starts with, protection. It starts with the defense and the schemes that they're playing. Um, and then that trickles down to timing and routes and anticipation by Brock, getting the ball out, finding the right wide receivers, and all of those different types of things. Um, you know, he is so I have a hard time saying it's one thing. I when I've talked about the offense, it it's a multi-pronged issue in my opinion. There's multiple levels to it. I don't and if you want me to talk about Brock, I think Brock is definitely struggled this season. I do think that there have been moments where he's played exceptionally well and played better than we have ever seen Brock play. And I think that's part of this season is we've seen Brock play some of the best football of his career. And we have also seen Brock, not play the best ball of his career. I think he looks more human this year than he ever has before. I think part of that has to do with protection issues. Like I'm having the tape. I'm just rolling through the offensive tape right now. You can't see that's on my screen, but like there's a throw that he's trying to get it over to Debo Samuel over the middle, but he has to pick up his hitch leg to not get taken out by the tackle, and it's pulling the ball to the linebacker opposed to pulling the ball away from the linebacker, and the linebacker's just able to get his hand on it. It's when I look at the overall totality of it, I think it's the whole offense. I don't think we can sit here and place blame on one particular person. I think it's a combination of all things. I think the offense just isn't in rhythm. They're just not gelling, and they can find that rhythm for drives or quarters. We're just not seeing it for 60 minutes. And I think one of the things with Brock is I think he's putting a lot of pressure on himself. I think we talked about this earlier. I think he's feeling the pressure more right now than he ever has. And that's to be expected. He's the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. uh, Heavily scrutinized position. There's a giant contingent, even in the fan base, who want to see Brock fail or act like they want to see Brock fail to prove their priors. And it is what it is. He's playing for a huge contract. Um, who knows what's happening behind the scenes regarding that? Uh, I would say George is having a phenomenal year. I would say Pooney's having a phenomenal year for a rookie. I would say, Jordan Mason has been a standout when given the opportunities. Um, I would say Juwan Jennings having a great year. Um, I think Trent is being Trent. I think he's having a good season. Not a I want to say it was a great season by Trent, but it's a standard quality Trent year. Um, there are guys that are having good seasons on this offense, and so, but the problem that I'm seeing is consistency. I talk about consistency all the time. It's not a flashy type of topic. It's not like a flashy. There might be metrics that you can extrapolate on this consistency. But you guys know, I watch football. Like I watch the tape, you know. I'm a firm believer of that. Yes, stats and advanced analytics can absolutely measure against either other players, other teams, against yourself. It can provide information that you won't be able to really glean from the tape. Um, but I would consider myself kind of a football guy where I like to watch the tape. I like the tape to speak to me. I like the tape and the play and the body language and the blocking, the lack thereof, the play calling, situational play calling. Those are the things where I evaluate from. I do think that stats can provide insight into things that maybe you wouldn't have thought of or didn't think, or again, like I said, allows you to stack against other and compare against others. It's much more tangible evidence to be able to compare. But for me, I'm a visual person, so I just watch the tape. Like, yeah, I see some of the stats that float around, but I feel like the tape tells me what I need to know about their performance and about their playing and about um, the certain looks that they're getting, how they're approaching these looks. And I just feel like, again, it's just like a lack of rhythm. Lack of rhythm. I don't know if it's a lack of confidence in the whole group. Um, I don't know. I just feel like they're not running the football consistently. And I think when we talk about what has made these Kyle Shanahan offenses so good is their ability to run the football with consistency. And I just feel like, when we look at the games that they have lost, we're looking at games where they're not consistently running the ball all that well, or in the moments where it requires them to run the ball well, um, they have a little bit more struggle in that area, and it gets them out of rhythm. It gets them behind the sticks, and we just know that this team doesn't operate from a high level of efficiency when they're 2nd and 9, uh, you know, 3rd and 9. It just doesn't work that way. Um, and I think multiple things can be true at once. I mean, we heard Debo Samuel on his podcast say that this has been the most frustrating year of his career. And I would imagine that goes for the rest of the core guys. This is a frustrating year. And the reason why you hear the term Super Bowl hangovers is because it's compounded. You're compounding a game that I think we all felt they should have won. They, I mean, on top of that, most of these guys have experienced 2 Super Bowl gut-wrenching losses. And to sit here and say that that doesn't affect your mentals or doesn't affect those things, I don't think is true. I think that you can do your best to try to block it out, be like, it's not an issue, but football is a mental game, guys. Like, we focus so much on the physical elements of this game, but this game is played by humans. And these guys are run by their thoughts, by their confidence, by their emotions. Like, those are the things that allow them to lock in and execute. And so when you're looking at execution flaws, you have to look at it from a mental perspective. And I do think these guys are, one, they're mentally exhausted. Two, I think that when there's a consistent type of fall off, and that fall off is now continuing to rear its head and not being able to finish games, that is also a huge exhaustion point, in my opinion. To play a game that you should have won to only lose at the end, that that can weigh on you, and that can manifest itself, I think, in a lot of weird ways. But again, you know, it's I think it's a lot of this is mental of what they're dealing with. It's man, like, again, I've been around these players. I've talked to enough players. These guys are normal dudes, man. I just talked to Fred Warner 2 days ago. Got to interview him, got to kind of watch how he moves, he's a regular dude. Fred, he's just massive, and he's the best middle linebacker in football right now. But he's a regular dude. And I think we just expect these guys to, of course, they're going to be they're trained, and they are absolutely uh supposed to be these high level, you can't touch them kind of guys, but these guys are humans, man. um these guys have the same pressures, the same anxieties, the same level of depressions. We heard about, just recently how AJ Brown, one of the best receivers in the NFL right now, was contemplating taking his life in the prime of his career. And it's like, you don't know what battles these guys are going through. Just because they get paid a lot of money doesn't change where they came from. It doesn't change who they are. And with the world of social media, and our fan base is ruthless, they will go straight to your DMs and tell you to go KYS, or no, yeah, KYS. Um, we got some brutal people in this fan base. And you're already dealing with your own standard. You're dealing with your own expectations and what you're trying to hit. And not only when you fail, you're failing yourself, but you're failing thousands and thousands and thousands of people that also let you know about it. So I think, again, man, I think that a lot of the struggles that we're seeing come down to mental, come down to, just not playing complementary football. They're not on the same page. Offense and defense just haven't been on the same page all year. That doesn't mean that they haven't had opportunities to win games as a result, but they just haven't been on the same page. And I think that can wear you out mentally. So, anyways, I don't even know how we got onto that topic. I think we were talking about Super Bowl hangover or something like that. But bottom line is they're not playing to their standard. They know they're not playing to their standard. They know, and it's extremely frustrating. I did appreciate hearing like Debo talk about the mood in the locker room and how no one was talking. It was silent. You could hear a pin drop, and all those different types of things because they are just as gutted about these losses, probably more so than your biggest diehard fans because they have to live it. They got to relive it, and they got to watch the tape and they really have to own it and fix it and change it. And I think when you continue to find yourself in that process and you continue to fall short, that can challenge your confidence. That can be something that inhibits you. So I'm not making excuses. I'm just trying to talk about the thought of a hangover and what it represents. I think it just represents mental exhaustion. And when you're mentally exhausted, you're going to make more mistakes, you're going to make more errors, you're going to um you're going to do a lot of things that are out of character when you're not feeling locked in. So that could be a part of it as well. So anyways, the point of like what we're talking about is we've heard now from multiple 49er players that it's a must win, and not only just must win against the Packers, but it's must win from here on out. And we haven't seen the 49ers in this situation for a couple years now. I would say dating back to 2022. Was it even 2022? Maybe more so 2021, I think, is when it felt the most dire. When that Chicago week, it felt like it was that week 8. I remember talking to who, I think it was Brunskill. We had Brunskill on the channel. I think I remember talking to him specifically about that game because of what it meant and where they were, right? Because they had won versus the Lions, they had won versus the Eagles, then they lost on that uh game-winning drive by Aaron Rodgers in week 3. That ultimately got Diamador Lenore benched in that game. So Diamador Lenore loses his confidence and is banished to the shadow realm after week 3. They lose week 4, and I remember a very ugly game. They then lose to no, I don't think that was. They lose to the Cardinals, and then they lose to Carson Wentz and the Indianapolis Colts week 7. So they lose 4 in a row. And they lost 2 division opponents in that game or in that stretch. And I remember that week 8 game against the Chicago Bears and how that game felt like if they didn't win that game and they lost 5 in a row, felt like the season was over. Right. So heading into that season, they were already talking about must-win games week 8. Now, the 49ers have been talking about must-win games since week 4 of this year. And in that, then after they beat Chicago, they get destroyed by Colt McCoy and the Cardinals in week 9. And then they're able to go on a little bit of a run and get some wins. But they also, the point is they got 7 games remaining, and they got to win 90% of them. That's a tough spot to be in, especially when they probably should be 8-3 right now. They're not though. They're 5-5. But they should be 8-3, but they're not. They're 5-5, and as a result, their season is on the line because they haven't been able to close out wins against division opponents. That has severely put them in a bad spot. If the 49ers are 8-3 right now, no one's calling for anyone's head. No one's calling for anyone to be fired. But because they lost all those games at the end, all that does is hit on the unfortunate narrative, which isn't just a narrative. It is part of the 49ers reality of losing fourth quarter 10-point leads. It is a source of PTSD that I've talked to you about. I've told you before that I didn't realize I had fourth quarter 10-point PTSD until Rams week 2 when they went 10 points up, and then I realized, like, oh yeah, I have 10-point fourth quarter PTSD. And so now we've seen them go through this season, lose multiple games in that same fashion. And they lose to the Seattle Seahawks just recently, which they couldn't. They needed that game. So it's tough, man, because I think we're all in the same boat. The difference is if you're a player in that locker room, pointing a finger and saying it's this guy's fault, it's that guy's fault, that doesn't help anyone win. That doesn't help this team get back on track. So the conversations of trying to perceive how the team is handling this internally versus externally in the fans and media is going to be much different. For them to be able to get back on track, they got to stick together. They have to rally and they got to fight for each other to be able to get back into these games. If they start pointing the finger and they start saying it's this guy's fault, it's that guy's fault, it's this group's fault, et cetera, then yeah, they're in a really tough spot if that's the case. These are the moments where galvanize potential championship caliber teams is how do they come together during adversity? How do they come together when their back's against the wall? And unfortunately, they haven't seemingly done that this season because of the losses and how they've lost. So the 49ers, their backs are against the wall. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about this. Like, they have a massive hill to climb. They've got to win this game against the Packers. Like, they have to. This is a must win. Like, we've talked about must wins. This is a must win, man. If they don't win this game, like those chances and of the playoffs, and I always talk about I'm not going to count them out till they're mathematically eliminated. Well, they're as close to being mathematically eliminated as possible if they lose against the Packers. So this is a big game. I know a lot of people feel like the season's over, and I get it. The season has not gone at all as we anticipated or even as it should. Even if the 49ers are 8-2 right now, it still would be not a pretty 8-2. There's still been a lot of disjointed football, but they've still been that close that they could be 8-2 right now. And what they need to, I think, rest on is the fact that they still have talented players inside that locker room, and they need to play freely, man. They need to loosen up. I think they've been playing way too tight this year. And again, which comes back to the mental aspect of this. And I just think that there's a lot of tightness to this team, and it's affecting them in the long run. So what I'm curious to see is how they respond to this. How do they answer this? And I'm curious, man. I'm really curious to see how they respond on the road, potentially in the elements in a game that you have to win. All that mental exhaustion, all of it doesn't matter once that first whistle blows. You got 60 minutes. 60 minutes to keep your season alive. And that's I think the thing that you can find a little positivity in is if they win, they have that feeling of we're alive. See, we can do it. We can win with our backs against the wall. That could be a confidence booster. So there's not a lot of silver linings right now. There's not a lot of things to be optimistic about right now because of the hole that they put themselves into. Um, but when we've talked about this team's grit, when we've talked about this team's leadership, now is the time for that to show up. Now is the time for that to prove to themselves who they are. This isn't even about anyone else. It's not about content creators or bloggers or journalists or fans or talking heads. Those things can't matter. What matters right now is proving to themselves that they are who they think they are and that their record isn't indicative of the team that they are. And that's the problem is their record right now middle of the pack. Literally 500, 5-5. 8 games remaining or excuse me, 7 games remaining on the schedule. It's make or break, baby. It is make or break. And the Packers desperately want to rip our heads off because we have ended their season many times and they want to return the favor. And now you got Robert Saleh with inside information of how everything is run with the San Francisco 49ers. He's already game planned against the 49ers. So they have a little bit of an inside help with Saleh now on their staff as a consultant. And I don't know. This game is going to be the ultimate who wants it. Who wants it? And it sounds cliche. It sounds super like, no, well, don't they all want to win? When I say who wants it, like who wants it from their soul, like deep down, being able to pass through all the crap and somehow lock in and play at your highest level regardless of everything that's going on. Josiah says, I feel like we could still beat the Packers. I feel like we can still beat the Packers. Dude, if we all had the same intensity as Juwan Jennings right now, our offense would be unstoppable. Like Jennings just, whenever he gets the ball, it's like he's never touched the ball before and he never wants to let it go or go down. It's like if everyone on this offense could play with that same level of intensity, I would say Kittle shares that same level of intensity. Trent shares that same level of intensity. Not that guys like McCaffrey aren't. McCaffrey's just he's trying to get back. He's clearly not 100% back to where he was. But man, just got to get that intensity back. Got to get, and that's also I think kind of like a cliche, like it because it's more than that. It's more than that. It really comes down to execution, really comes down to execution and rhythm. And then when you sprinkle in the intensity on top of that, that's when everything looks real good. So it all starts with executing. It all starts with executing up front. They need to be better in the run game. The blocking up front isn't consistent enough for them to rely on them in big time moments, and it all starts with the O line up front, man. It's not just this year; it's multiple years. They're just not consistent enough up front, and they need to be better on the interior, uh, blocking consistently. There's just missed angles, missed tracks. It just shows up quite a bit. Um, and it's got to improve, you know. So but even so, like even with all of this stuff, they probably still should have won that game. They still should have won. I agree. I agree. More discipline, can't have the penalties. That's a great point. What happened to the bully 49ers? What happened to that team that showed up into Philadelphia wearing all black? Where's that team? And again, it wasn't perfect to start. They went 3 and out twice to start that game. And it looked kind of gross at the beginning of that one, but then it kicked into gears and then they went beast mode. Um so that's the thing is they're capable of doing it. They just need to get it done, man. They need to get it done. Is it time to put the Debo jet sweep on the shelf? I've seen a lot of conversation about that. I just don't think teams respect it. I think I think the pre-snap motions aren't presenting the same challenges to the defenses as they have before. And I just think that they have the answers. Like jet sweeps aren't sneaking up on anyone anymore, if that makes sense. Like they have they know what to key on when they see that happening. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I wouldn't mind seeing like some sweeps with some other players, just to see how that would go. Um, but um, yeah, I don't feel like I don't know. I don't know if Debo has that same explosion like he used to. I remember I posted onto Instagram throwback a bunch of highlights from the 2019 game. He just looked different. Like he looked different. He looks different now. Um, he looked like just other like on another level explosive in that when I was watching those 2019 clips and like him hitting that corner and I was like, he and it was interesting watching it because I was like, he he does look like he's I don't know if it's true, but it does look like he's like half a step slower than what he used to be. And again, I was just comparing it to like watching the clips, and I was like, dang, he looked way more explosive. Um, and again, that's a 2019 comparison. Appreciate the super sticker. Um, so I don't know. I don't know. It's tough, man. It's tough. I just think it comes down to uh I think it comes down to the fact that we're searching. We're searching for that X factor right now. And, Kittle's been a great X factor. Obviously CMC's uh still getting there. Um Juwan has been pretty solid. Uh Yeah, yes, we're all half a step slower than what we were in 2019. Now, 2019 it's crazy that how long ago that was. But yeah, we're all a little slower. All of us. All of us is a little slower. Comes with the territory. But also I can also recognize we're in a state of hyper analysis right now because in every win, you can find equally terrible plays. Like you can find equally terrible mistakes and bad things that have happened, but a win changes the conversations. The win, like you're not breaking down bad plays in a win because even with how they played, if the defense gets the stop, we're just talking about how we beat Seattle again, and we're like, "Oh, we're back 6-4. We're back on track." Um, we're just right now. It's just I think because of how the 49ers have lost, we've had a lot more hyper analysis of why they've lost in seasons past. So that's also a contributing factor to why it feels like they're playing worse than they ever have because when they lose, we're not breaking down the good plays. When they lose, we're breaking down the bad plays and which plays contributed to the loss and why did they lose here and why did they lose there and that when you lose 3 games in the 4th quarter that should have been wins that come down to loss and it changes that's a big swing of momentum of just in how this team is talked about. Um, right? Like if they win those 3 games and the 49ers are 8-2 right now, no one's complaining. But because they lost those games in the 4th quarter with leads, it pours gasoline onto the negative narratives that accompany losses. So that's the hard part. It's like right now, a lot of people are super down, super upset, and rightfully so. Um, but I think it can be exacerbated by the fact that how they've lost and what the emphasis of focus have been contribute to that uh, negative type of perpetuation of how they're playing. Because again, a couple drives, just a couple plays, a couple drives go a little bit differently in those just 3 division games. If you would have, and again, that's how thin the margins are, and it's not an excuse. It is what it is. You are what your record is, and when you lose those games, there's a reason why you lose those games. So you have to identify those reasons, and what we're identifying is it's more than just one thing, and that's why Kyle is a huge point of emphasis right now because it's starting with a lot of it's coming on the back of his offense and his potential like play calling and situational play calling and perceived to be that way. And that's why a lot of people are just upset. A lot of people are angry. A lot of people have emotions. A lot of people A lot of people not thrilled. And again, rightfully so. I just think there are moments where we expect so much more from this team, and we expect so much more from the coaching and the players. And I think fans just keep getting let down. And there is no more room to be let down because of losing the Super Bowl with a 10-point lead. And lose I get it. People are exhausted, people are fed up, but at the end of the day, man, you know, fans aren't making it any easier on these players, and no one's sitting here saying like it's your job to make it easier, but I know you are invested in the team winning. And it is kind of sad to see that in a moment where mathematically the season isn't over, there's not a lot of support. There's not a lot of like, all right, we got you guys back because we're 49er fans and we want to see you win and we want to see you do the improbable and we want to see you just go on a run and prove all the doubters wrong. Like I don't see any of that. Like I don't everyone is just pissed off. Everyone is there's I get that. I get that. But in everything that I know from covering this team since 2017, the way that I cover them with a social media focus, I know for a fact that the social media discourse gets back to the players and it impacts them. It does. It absolutely does because they're human beings. And, I think that's been part of the unfortunate thing to see this week is we can all like I'm frustrated. I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm happy about any of this. I'm not happy about the 10 like I've told you before. I have fourth quarter PTSD, but at the same time it's like we still want to will these guys to win. It's not over just yet. Like so let's why not ride out? Like why not go down guns blazing? Like we got a big game coming up against the Packers and we're fans of this team. Let them know that we're riding with them till the wheels fall off because right now we're not. We're not riding with them till the wheels fall off. The wheels haven't fallen off just yet. They're close. Oh, they're close, but they haven't fallen off yet. But everyone's acting like they have fallen off. And I think that could also perpetuate some of that energy. And, I think it's a powerful thing when you have tens of thousands of people pushing and urging a group forward opposed to tearing them down. And right now, a lot of people tearing down this group. And I get it, frustrated, upset, not performing to what we've expected. But we're also not helping them. We're also not sending any good energy their way to be like, all right, yeah, this all sucked, but we still rock with the gang because we're Niner fans and we want to see you win and we want to see you beat the Packers and we want to see you fight till the tooth and nail till the season is no more. I'm not seeing that. And that's that part about like doing what I do as yeah, I'm a fan of the 49ers, but you guys know I can be objective and talk about this team objectively. I just don't see I don't see the support because I think the way that we feel about the Super Bowl loss, they feel about the Super Bowl loss. So it's not like they intentionally lost the Super Bowl for us as fans and we need to go yell at them all about not winning the Super Bowl for us. It's it's like no, they're also going through that. They're also in that boat of having to overcome that disappointment while everyone else is piling on top of them. That's a hard place to be because they're human. They're not robots. And so what would be cool is to see a narrative shift and see a shift in like, hey, there's still time. There is still a chance. So until the wheels fall off, let's go. It's time to fight. It's time to it's time to go all out. It's time to leave everything out on the field. And I get it. We're fans, so we're not involved in the games, but I know for a fact that your energy impacts them. I know that. I've seen it. I've heard it. I've talked to them about it. Fans and the way they talk about this team absolutely have an impact. And just not seeing enough support, you know? Um, but it is what it is. I'm not going to tell you how to fan. I'm not going to tell you any of that stuff. It's just my observations. Um, and taking in everything that I know and talking about it. So we'll see, man. We'll see. Well, if it's over, I'm gonna tell you it's over. I'm not gonna, polish a turd and try to sell it to you as a diamond. But it's not over yet. So until it's over, we'll see. We'll see. Big game coming up against the Packers. One game at a time, one quarter at a time, one possession at a time, one play at a time. That's what it is. You can't that this team can't think too far ahead, too far behind. They got to live in the moment. They got to be where their feet are, and they got to play every single play just like that. And if they can do that and they can stack and they can win, season is still alive. If they win against the Packers, the season is still alive. So let's see. Let's see what we get. Big game coming up. Hey, that's what I'm saying. I haven't heard the fat lady sing yet. She's me. She's warming up the vocal cords. She's me. She's ready, but we're trying to sit down. Sit down, be quiet. That's where we're at right now. She's trying to walk up on this me. Sit down, be quiet. That's where the 49ers are at. She's trying. She's trying to belt something out, and we're trying to So she's not when she starts singing, yeah, we'll know. We'll know. But she hasn't started singing yet. So hey, gotta apply pressure. But I appreciate all you guys, man. If it ever gets to that point where we start hearing her sing, yeah, it's gonna suck. But let's keep it a buck. Let's be honest. Let's be real. She hasn't started singing yet, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. And again, it's really easy to prey on those emotions. It's really easy to be upset, and I could come on here and tell you, yeah, we suck, guys. Yeah, fire everyone. And it would hit for most of you because you don't like what you've seen. It takes no skill, takes no analysis, takes zero effort, because we all feel the same way. The point of what we're doing is we're trying to fight through our emotions, and we're trying to use logic to understand the reality of the situation and where we are. The reality of the situation is we're in a hole. And the 49ers have only themselves to blame for being in that hole. But they have a window about this big that they have the opportunity to climb out. Now, are they going to do it? That's up to them. It's up to them. But they have the opportunity. It's in front of them. Are they going to take advantage of it? Are they going to keep that window open, or is it going to slam shut in their face? We're going to find out this weekend. Big game coming up. Appreciate everyone, as always, for tapping in. I know it's been a challenging time, challenging week, but Fat Lady hasn't started singing yet. Let's go. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to